We are recording. This is Multifamily Masters Live. We do this once a month, free content, tons of value. Multifamily Masters was formed and kind of initiated around the premonition of creating as much value as possible for everyone around us. Long story short, we want you to know this business inside and out because we want you closing deals, because plain and simple, what's in it for us? We want to partner with you if that situation ever arises. So we created Multifamily Masters. We have about 60 meetups across the globe, 60, 70, I don't know that exact number. COVID has hurt us somewhat. So like Powell mentioned a little bit ago, if you're interested in hosting a local meetup, we have a turnkey system for you. Reach out to one of us, admin@multifamilymasters.com. We have a mastermind group. We have the best mastermind in the world. We're all about teaching the ins and outs of this business because, like I just said a few minutes ago, we want you closing deals. We want you knowing this business inside and out because we want to partner with you. Multifamily real estate, storage, commercial real estate is a team sport, and we want to be on your team. Multifamilymasters.com. We have a Facebook group. We do these Facebook Lives once a month. I have the best business partners in the world. My name is Garrison Gilbert. I am from the Baltimore, Maryland area, 21 years full-time real estate experience. That's a little bit about me. I'll go ahead and let Powell and Feras introduce themselves, and then we're gonna kick it off tonight with a question and answer, a Q&A. Ask us anything and everything, anything multifamily, anything real estate, anything business, anything mindset related. We're here to answer, and if we can't answer it, we'll figure out the answer for you. We do not know everything, but we have a wealth of knowledge and experience behind us. Take it away, Powell.
Okay, and I think we're just going to go over our bios real quick. And you know what I think would be good too, Garrison, is maybe you just talk about maybe one of the latest deals that you did, and just so that people get a real quick idea of what the questions that they can ask you as well.
Sure. And you know, the great thing about Powell, Feras, and myself partnering up into a Multifamily Masters is we have very different backgrounds, but we're all focused around real estate. I focus on small, medium, large apartment buildings, typically 100 units and less. Powell focuses on self-storage, and then Feras buys a lot of big deals. I run the mastermind here at Multifamily Masters, and a couple recent deals that we closed on, a couple of small, medium-sized apartment buildings in the Georgia area. Recently, I relocated from Baltimore, Maryland to Florida, so I focus on typically the Georgia, Florida markets. Anything medium, large, kind of related. I try to hit that target right between kind of the mom and pop buyers, you know, the 5, 10, 15, 20 units, and the commercial institutional buyers, which is like 125 and plus. So I try to hit that sweet spot right there where we can go direct to seller and we can kind of get some value add properties there that the big boys aren't quite looking for. Go ahead, Powell.
Awesome. I think that's great. Thanks, Garrison. So my name is Powell Chee. I live in Los Angeles. All my real estate investing has been outside of California. So I've invested in, so I'm a general partner on 5 different syndications. They were all around 2019 that I got involved in them. And they happen to be like, you know, all different markets. So I'm not a person that concentrates on a specific market. They're in, let's say, Dallas, Atlanta, Phoenix, Jacksonville, sort of all over the place. And when COVID came about, because of the way that I operate my multifamily, I really decided that, hey, I need to look at another asset class too. So I added basically self-storage to my asset classes. So now I'm involved in both multifamily as well as self-storage. And since COVID hit, I closed in 2021, I closed 6 self-storage properties that year. I just closed my 7th one earlier this month, and I'm under contract right now for my 8th. So heavily involved in both multifamily as well as self-storage. Happy to answer any questions that we have that people have about either of the asset classes, and I'm being on the sponsor side, or being on the general partner side, raising capital, finding deals, all those types of things. Definitely looking forward to the conversation today. So from that, I will pass it on to Feras. Feras, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Powell. Thank you, Garrison. So hello, everybody. I'm Feras of a company called Disrupt Equity. We primarily buy properties throughout Texas and Georgia, and we've done everything from kind of the deep value add, down units that the seller should have never owned a property and they kind of accidentally stumbled into it, to a nicer, newer property. So I mean, our last deal we closed was a deal actually here in Houston, which is where we're based. It was a 387 unit A-class deal that we bought. So we're very nimble, very dynamic, and we are vertically integrated as well. We do have our own management company, and I like to say management is the worst business in the world, but a necessary evil. So we do first and third party management. So I could talk about anything from acquisitions to raising money to management if people want to talk about it. So with that said, I think like Powell and Garrison mentioned, we're all pretty candid, transparent people. And so really, I think we've always found the most value, both as attendees and speakers, to be Q&A. And so that's kind of where we all decided, hey, let's just do a whole webinar on Q&A. I think people get the most value, and we're big on, doing things that are valuable to people, not wasting our time or other people's time. And so, this is all for you guys. And so feel free to ask questions, and we can kind of deep dive on topics, or, keep it light and bright. And so if you have questions, go ahead and leave it in the chat, and, we can all start to moderate it and ask those questions.
And let me go ahead and state real quick that this is being recorded, so anything you say can and possibly will be held against you.
And as you're coming up with the questions where you're thinking about whether it's acquisitions or how to choose a market or how to raise capital, how to choose partners, whatever your question is, or more if it's a deep dive into a specific deal, definitely write them in, but we're happy to answer those questions. But also the plan is to let's see, well, it's 6:30 my time. I don't know what everybody else's time is. So at about 45 minutes, we will break for a session of breakout rooms. Okay, so we'll go for a session. I'll put about 6 to 7 people inside of a breakout room, and then you can network inside that breakout room with a smaller group of people. Definitely exchange your contact information there, and we'll be doing that for a few minutes after we do this part of the session. Okay, and then we'll end right after that. Okay.
Hey, Pal, I got a couple questions texted over to me. Do you mind if I go ahead and ask you the first one?
Sure. Let's do it.
It was just to the group, but I'll go ahead and ask Powell or Feras, whichever one wants to answer this. When raising capital, what is the single most important part of raising capital, number one? And number two, what did you find most difficult when you're raising capital on your first deal?
Well, I would say probably the single most important thing is that you're doing it right. Okay, that there are some rules, and you need to know the rules around how to raise capital, right? And how to do that right. So we could dive deeper into those rules, but there are certain things that you can and cannot do, and who you can target and who you cannot target. So you want to make sure you understand that, and basically who you are broadcasting your message to, right? So there are things that you cannot do, and you could basically put your whole investment in jeopardy if you do the wrong things. So you really need to understand the rules around raising capital. So that is probably the most important thing. I guess the second part of the question was, what was the second part of the question, Garrison, about your first time raising capital?
Whenever you raise capital for the first time, what did you think was the hardest part about raising capital for that first deal?
Let me see, the hardest part about doing it. I mean, I would say, let's see, I didn't really find that there was like a hardest part, right? It's really like, I guess the hardest part was really just putting yourself out there, that this is what you're doing and letting people know what you're doing, right? Because sometimes you're a little nervous to talk to your friends and family about what you're trying to do, or what you're getting in real estate, or I'm trying to raise capital on a deal, I'm trying to do this. You don't really want to come across as a person that is not very confident in what you're doing, right? You want to make sure you understand the deal, you understand what it is you're doing, and then you have some confidence to tell people, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really excited about this property, and this is why we're doing it. And this is what you can do if you're interested in getting involved in it, right? And then just kind of leave it to them to take the next steps moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll add too, I mean, people ultimately want to invest with someone they like, know, and trust. So figure out how to get them to like, know, and trust you before you have a deal. don't wait till you have a deal before you start to talk to people about, wanting to invest, right? And that's where I tell people to do things to create awareness with your potential investors as to what you do, right? Like take a screenshot being on this webinar, right? Post that. That shows people that you're getting educated, right? The last thing people want to do is be the first person they think you went to whenever you had this new crazy idea, right? There's always that in the back of people's head. Oh, Powell has this new crazy idea, and now he's doing, real estate. And, 2 weeks ago, he was doing something else, right? And people always have that, right? And so it's more about showing people, look, you're educated, right? You're not brand new to the show, right? And show people that you're someone that they need to like, know, and trust.
Absolutely. And to touch upon two of those things that Powell just mentioned, definitely know the rules inside and out. I'm looking at a deal right now that we're making an offer on where the owner got fired. Literally, the SEC fired him. It is a property that is under receivership, meaning we're making an offer directly to the attorney who's just trying to get the money back for the investors, because that gentleman, he did not go to jail. He didn't get arrested. But what he did do was he borrowed money from unaccredited investors into a 506C. They found out, they fired him. They made him walk away from the properties. Now they're trying to sell them themselves. You do not want to be in that position. So definitely know your rules, have a good SEC attorney. With that being said, Powell, a follow-up question is, Powell or Feras, do you always use the same SEC attorney on every deal, or do you price compare amongst other ones, or do you kind of switch it up every couple deals?
Yeah, I'd say find the attorney that you like and stick with it. I mean, it's not worth trying to save a few $1,000s by trying to switch attorneys. It's a lot of work to review the SEC docs, right? We have ours dialed in that it's just such a headache if I was to go to a new SEC attorney and start over new and have to go review those and vet those and put the whole enchilada together. I mean, so find someone you like, make sure that the quality of the work is good, the pricing is good, and stick with it.
Yeah, I would say that I'm heading in that same boat too. I have used different attorneys, and for some reasons you find certain attorneys, I mean, you don't have to stick with your first one. Well, at least I don't feel like you need to stick with your first one. I was with one and I was like, truthfully, there was a lot of issues with that one. And there was a lot of things that kind of messed up. And I just don't feel like we found the right one. So we were looking, we found another attorney and we're working with another attorney. In general, I've had some pretty not so great experiences with a lot of attorneys. And so I still am looking for that attorney that I can just kind of work consistently with, for sure. How about you, Garrison? What do you do with your attorneys?
I'm definitely price conscious on everything that I do. But once I find a good one, I'm going to stick with them. I feel as if we have a pretty good one right now, and I have no plans on switching it up unless something drastic and dramatic happens. It doesn't mean that we're not willing to switch up our team or kind of move on from someone. But if it's not broke, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, for sure.
Yeah, and one thing I should mention too is that not everybody is doing all SEC. Not everybody's syndicating, right? Some of you have mentioned when we talked earlier on that you're doing deals in the 5 to 30 unit range, right? You may be not syndicating those deals. You might just JV those deals, right? You got an 8 unit deal, you probably just do a JV. In that case, you may not want to talk to an SEC attorney. You may want to talk to a state, like a local state attorney that's familiar with the state that you're investing in, right? So I've done that too, as well as just reach out to a real estate attorney that's familiar with the state that I'm investing in, and they're not a syndication attorney, they're a real estate attorney.
Sure. You want to go ahead and you got any questions in the chat below? I see we got a couple comments here. I'm trying to share this around Facebook right now.
So one thing that somebody did ask, I think Frank, you asked that, will this be recorded? Yes, if you just check on our YouTube page, probably within a day or so here, we'll be posting this to our YouTube page. So you can check out the recordings there. Let's see.
I did get one person ask a question. What was the hardest deal you closed and why? And so maybe we could all answer that, but I mean, I guess I'll answer first. Hardest deal we closed was actually a deal we were selling. I won't mention the deal because I don't want people to know who it was and why, but I mean, ultimately it just boiled down to a very, how do I want to put it? a very paranoid buyer, right? They really, everything was always delayed, right? From insurance to other things. And, on top of that, it was a deal that the lender was also dragging their feet. And it just, there was no sense of urgency. So everything about it was really dragging. The buyer kept asking 1,000,001 questions, and it just became a huge grind for us. And we're literally spending so much effort and energy to go sell this deal, right? And, from everything along the way was paying, from them trying to retrade, they came back and asked for $1,000,000 retrade, to all sorts of stuff. And so this is where, whether you're a buyer or seller, make sure you understand who the other party you're working with is, right? And this was a group that was really, it was vetted, right? But we still had, vetted by the broker. The broker had worked with them, but for whatever reason, early on, they just got paranoid, and that just led to, a never-ending barrage of things. And ultimately, it was a deal that we were happy to finally get across the finish line, but it dragged and dragged and dragged.
I'll go next in terms of, I don't know if it was necessarily my hardest deal, but it's the deal that at least kind of stands out just because I just closed it. So I just recently closed one in the Houston area, self-storage deal. And that
he didn't even come in to say hi to us whenever he came down.
Man, that was a blur. He
flew into the wrong airport. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So this deal in self-storage, the lending is a little different than multifamily, right? So you're looking at different types of lenders. So that's first a difference, is that I was working with a CMBS lender, not Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac type of lender. So working with CMBS, and a lot of times CMBS, you are working with some huge banks. So we were working with one of the huge Wall Street banks, right? So like big banks, right? And they are very much in the box. When we're closing, we were on conference calls with them, probably weekly conference calls once we signed the agreement to work with them, the term sheet. And so these weekly conference calls, there was 12 people on the call. And I was like, 12 people? That's a lot of people on this. There's committees of all these committees that are on the call. And I was like, okay, I'm used to maybe 1 or 2 people, but 12 people need to be on this call. And then they also, because they're Wall Street banks, they require you, well, I don't know about require, I would say require, but it's probably unwritten rule that you have to have an attorney represent you as well on these calls. So in this deal, I actually had 3 separate attorneys working on this deals in all different capacities, right? There was SEC, or the syndication attorney. I had a lending transaction attorney. I also had an attorney specifically based in Texas, right? So you have to pay for all these attorneys too, right? So you have to pay for all these attorneys, which was a big chunk of money. But also the lenders, CMBS lenders, I don't know, at least this one tends to be a little bit, you have to work with people that are kind of in the box when you're working with all these committees. So we were able to get it through, but at the last minute, we had to raise another like $1.2 million, right? The last week of the deal before it closed. Now that's not easy. And when I got that news that week, I was pissed, and then I was sad, and then I was like angry. So I went through all the emotions, and my business partner's like, "All right, you done? Because we gotta hustle on it. We gotta get this thing done, right? We can do it. Let's go." So. But it was a lot of things. It's like a lot of different things, a lot of different requirements, a lot of different. We had a list of basically 88 different things that we were going through every week. Okay, this needs to get done. This needs to get done. This needs to get done. And just all different people doing all different things. And we're in the middle of it, trying to make sure that everybody's doing their job. So I would say I don't know if it's the hardest one, but it certainly was one that stood out and probably gave me some good brain damage.
Have you had any absolute nightmare stories, Powell? Anything crazy happen in any of your apartments or any of your self-storage units? Anything that just threw you for a wow, I can't believe that just happened?
You mean with the closing of the deals like that?
Closing of the deal, operating of the deal, someone got, I don't even know what, in one of your apartments, like just anything crazy happened?
Well, let's see. I've had the police called on me while I was visiting my property. So I was under contract on my very first one, and I was actually doing a Facebook Live, and it was at night. And so we always go to visit our properties at night because we want to see, when you're in self-storage, you want to see how they're lit up, right? Because they have to be safe, or else people don't want to go there. So we go to the light, check it out at night, and as we're kind of, doing our due diligence and walking through the property, and there's nobody there at night, and all of a sudden the police come in full force, real fast, and they're like ready to arrest us. And I'm literally on Facebook doing a Facebook Live at this moment, talking about self-storage, and I knew nothing was going to happen, so I just kind of continued with my Facebook Live. And I asked the police officer, I was like, I don't think you probably want to be on camera right now, just considering all the things that are going on with police on camera. And he's like, no, I prefer not to. So, I was like, no worries. But, we had to show him all this documentation that we have a purchase and sale agreement, and this is us, and we signed it, and this is going to be our property that we are buying. But truthfully, it ended up being great. It ended up being great knowing that, hey, within say 15, 20 minutes of some suspicious characters at our storage place, the neighbors are calling the police and getting the police out there. So that's great. And the police came there really fast, and knowing that actually the police were very helpful, and he waited there basically until our Uber came, and our Uber was probably a little bit suspicious of picking up people when you see a police car right there. So yeah, but that was a fun story, I would say.
And Powell forgot to mention that he sold that guy 2 self-storage units. The guy signed 1-year leases on both of them.
Yeah, I know. I should have hit him up then.
Feras, what's the craziest thing you've had happen in any of your apartment buildings or any of your real estate transactions?
Hey, you're on mute, Feras.
You're muted, Feras.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I was saying, you guys don't want to know. I mean, we've had everything happen, from shootings to killings the weekend before close. I mean, everything and anything, right? And I see some facial reactions, but you guys got to realize, I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of people living at any of our properties, right? Shootings happen on A-class properties, they happen on C-class properties, and life happens, right? We had one incident where it was a week before closing and a deal we were buying, and they found a body in the dumpster. And so I get paranoid, because usually that'll scare the lender, right? Well, the cops ended up ruling that it was someone that committed suicide, right? And it's sad, right? I mean, the whole situation is a sad situation, but at least a suicide is very different than a murder, right? Within the lender's eyes. And things happen, right? Like, I lived in Seattle, and I remember an A-class property, a woman shot her husband, right? So the thing to tell people is that stuff happens, and it's about working through the problems and the challenges and finding a resolution, right? We had one where the weekend before we bought it, the lender saw some tweet by the sheriffs that they said they had life flighted someone from the parking lot, right? Some, I forget what it was, like two kids, or the drug deal, or something stupid like that. So the lender, saw that, like, literally, I didn't think the lender was going to find out. And of course, they find out the day before closing. So then the lender tries to retrade. So then you got to play hardball with the lender and say, well, here's what happened, and here's why that's not a problem, right? And so, yeah, things happen, and realize that, people, right? Like, no, we've had it all happen, right? We've done enough transactions, both on the buy and sell side. You see it all, and just be ready, right? So,
how about you, Garrison? What kind of crazy story you got?
Normally I talk about a murder whenever someone asks this question, or I went to jail one time for doing an illegal eviction. And the sheriff actually did the eviction. I did not do the eviction. I lived 2 hours away. I got called on 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, said, we want you in the judge's chamber. I went to jail for 2 days over a weekend in Baltimore City. That wasn't fun. But actually, here's kind of a learning lesson for anyone on this call. This is something we preach and something we say and something we coach, but not something you think that will actually really take place in real world. One of the first apartment buildings I bought, I was about 25, 26. I bought a 13 unit, Stoll Street, Baltimore, Maryland, Hood. It's called Brooklyn Park, bad area. I bought it, and every property had a fake lease on it. I did not know it. This is where you come with, let's analyze all the leases. Let's dig through all the leases. Let's make sure there are no red flags. Every apartment, 13 apartments, everyone signed their new lease, just hypothetically say February 1st. I bought this property on April 1st. I collected the first 2 months rent. The third month, I collected zero rent. Fourth month, zero rent. I went to the tenants, asked them why they were not paying and why 100% of them were not paying. Long story short, the guy who sold it to me, I still remember his name. His name was Ivan. Ivan hasn't stopped by and given us any money. So I bought 13 apartments that had 13 fake leases. I had 0% occupancy. I almost had to file bankruptcy. I handed this property off. I wholesaled it out to a group of people who bought a lot of properties from me. I ended up giving them their wholesale fee. I gave them like $75,000. And I babysat the property, had to renovate it out of my own pocket and get it leased back up for them. And it took me like 4 or 5 months. Absolute headache, absolute nightmare. So audit your leases. Long story short, that would be my worst story. You don't want to put yourself in that position.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's good info. It's one of those things that's not always bright and shiny and rainbows and unicorns when you're doing, real estate investing. Sure. Hey, so Feras, I got a question that came up for you. I think you'd probably be a good one to answer this one. Adrian S asked, when raising capital and structuring it as a syndication, how do you pay for the upfront fees, your lawyer, your paperwork, if you don't have any capital for yourself to pay for those lawyer fees?
Yeah, so on a deal, right, what fees does the sponsor have to come up with up front? It's really the earnest money, right? And then it's the earnest money and then usually the application fee for the loan, right? So earnest money is whatever you negotiated, right? Whether it's $100,000 or $1 million, right? We've done the full gamut on that. So that's money that us and our partners have to come up with. And there are people that will provide that for a fee, right? They'll provide the earnest money if you don't have the liquidity. And then the other piece is the application fee. Usually that's $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Everything else usually gets rolled in and paid at closing, right? And you do get reimbursed for that application fee and some of the other stuff too. And so those are the things that you usually need to fund up front. Everything else, like, the SEC attorney does not get paid if the deal doesn't close, right? I don't think. I mean, we've never had a deal that didn't close, but I'm pretty sure that if a deal did not close, they would not expect payment. So all that gets paid at closing.
Okay, and then let me see, Garrison, I think I have one for you that came up here. Let me see, I think it's Adrian also. Sorry, I'm on my phone, so
While Powell looks through this, we are live on Facebook. This is Multifamily Masters Live. If you're watching this on Facebook, if you're seeing this live on any social media channel, feel free to share this if you see value in this. We do this once a month. It's just us hopping on here. We have a lot of experience trying to give back to the community and trying to grow the community, really. Go ahead, Powell.
Awesome. Garrison, I was just going to ask you, as from Adrian S as well, it says, how do you know when to structure a deal as a JV or a syndication? Can you elaborate on the difference between a JV and a syndication?
I've done a lot of both. Early on, I did tons of JV because it was hypothetically easier. The biggest difference for me would be how much capital do we need and how many people are there? In a JV, everybody has to be active, everybody has to participate, everybody has to add value. You can't just bring money into a JV agreement and say, hey, here's my money, let's partner up. I'm gonna go live my life, send me my money. You gotta be involved with it. So if you can raise the capital and take the deal down with 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 people and everybody has an active role, let's do a JV. Let's skip the SEC attorney, let's skip the $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 you may spend on that SEC attorney. But if you're raising capital from several people, you need to raise a couple $1 million. It's probably better to structure that as an SEC syndication. Powell, you do a lot of JVs. What would you say would be your biggest determining factor between the two?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it is just what you mentioned. It comes down to me as like, how big of a raise are you doing? Right? It's how big of a raise do you guys need to come up with? And can you do it in a JV where you can do it with a couple group, a small group of people, or is it a larger raise and you need to bring in people who are going to be passive investors in the deal, right? And
yep.
So that's all it really is for me. Okay. Let me see. Attila Tormasi asked, how did you get into your first large multifamily deal? So want both of you to go ahead and answer this one. I can answer as well.
I added value to a team of people that necessarily didn't need my help per se. I figured out how I could add value to that team. I wanted to learn by doing and get involved. I got a small piece of the pie. I got to watch a big deal take place. I got to watch it go to closing. I got to watch it go through operations. I got to see all the headaches by kind of being a fly on the wall. And that was a huge benefit for me and my team.
Yep. Feras?
All right. For me, I'd say, I just kind of learned enough, read enough books, hopped on enough webinars and things to just be comfortable with going down and doing a 99 unit in Atlanta. So, I sourced a deal and, got across the finish line, and the rest is history. So
awesome. So for me, how I got involved was my first large syndication was I found the deal. So the deal was kind of through my network, found the deal, went out, visited the property, went with my business partner. We checked out the property. We liked it, and we thought it was a great one. But it was too big for us. It was too big for me and my business partner at the time to take that one down. And so we did rent comps. We visited other properties around. We just thought, hey, this is a good one. So found a sponsor who we thought, we'd like to work with and syndicate this deal, had some experience. So brought it to them, kind of like Garrison said, add value, be part of the team, got to see, how these things are run, and join the team and on a larger deal. So that's how I did my first one.
Here's a question that just came in through Facebook. If I wanted to partner with one of the three of you guys or all three of you guys, what would be the best way for me to partner with you guys?
Bring us a deal. Right now, the hottest thing to find is a good deal. So
I'm going to switch gears on that a little bit. That's exactly the reason why we created the Multifamily Masters Mastermind. We partner up with people in the mastermind. That would be my go-to. Every deal that I do, I try to get a couple mastermind people involved in that deal, give them GP spots, have them help out with due diligence, have them help out with operations, learn by doing. That's my favorite way of kind of taking action.
Yeah, and like Feras said, really to me, it really comes down to finding the deal. So none of us can really have our pulse on every single deal that's out there, right? We don't have that capacity, and I don't know of anybody that does, but we don't. And so if you are able to find a good deal in your neighborhood, or whether it's not in your neighborhood, somewhere else, and you found a great deal, and you're just like, hey, I would love to partner with you guys, and I think that you like our vibe and you want to partner with us, then reach out to us. Sure.
Absolutely. Here's a follow-up question. If I was just getting started, do you recommend I get a CRM or an investor portal? And I'm going to start off by answering that, saying that I use my investor portal for almost everything. I have a good friend named Perry who runs Cashflow Portal. And did I hear that someone on here works for?
Yeah, I think Christine said she was on.
Yeah, Christina.
Oh, Christina.
Yeah.
I know Chloe. I don't know Christina very well, but Chloe and Christina and Perry are my go-to Cashflow Portal. I like their portal better than the one we were using prior to that, but we use that, and we use a CRM called HubSpot. It's free. I know Powell used to use it. Do you still use HubSpot, Powell?
Actually, I use both the things that you mentioned. So I'm also a person that uses Cashflow Portal. So they're the team that I use as well. And I also use HubSpot for my CRM. So, and I would tell you though, I mean, Feras, you can go. You can tell us what like as far as like resources, whether it's CRM or management, investor management portal. What do you?
Yeah, my feedback to people is don't overthink it. Right, you just need a way to communicate with your investors. A lot of investor portals provide CRM functionality. A lot of CRMs provide other tracking functionality. So don't overthink it. Anything works. Right. At first, it's about communicating and creating awareness.
Just make sure you use whatever you're going to use. Nothing's good if you don't use it.
Okay, awesome.
And Powell, we're at the 45-minute mark now. Do you want me to open up? Do you want to get ready for the networking session for this? You want to answer a couple more questions?
I think we got a bunch more questions. I meant for about 15 more minutes. So about 15 more minutes that we would start it. So for about 15 more minutes.
Through some of the questions.
Yeah, I got some questions that we could hit sort of in a faster pace. I appreciate Sarita helping me out here with some of these questions. So let's see. Let me see. We got one from Jose. Let's see. How do you provide a wholesaler How do you provide a wholesaler or a proof of funds to prove that you are a legit buyer when you are not the person who will be the capital investor? Okay, so what do you do if somebody asks for a proof of funds? Basically, if the seller asks for a proof of funds or the broker asks for a proof of funds, what do you do? Let's just have one of you guys answer it, because there's a bunch of questions. We'll just have one person answer. So,
So my
Garrison or Feras?
philosophy
Yeah.
is if you're getting asked for proof of funds, that means you didn't do a good job building trust with the broker, right? Like I've never been asked for proof of funds, honestly. But we spend a lot of energy getting to know brokers and, turning them into friends. So they know us and they know we're capable.
Okay, good. Garrison, anything to add, or are you good there?
Pretty much, I was going to say exact same thing that Feras just said.
Okay, sounds good.
I've never been asked. Hey, David Hudgens, have you ever been asked for a proof of funds?
Well, I think the main thing is the broker wants to know that you're going to be able to perform on the deal. So as long as you have the relationship with them and they're comfortable that you're going to be able to perform, that's the most important thing. So if you provide some of your track record of some deals you've done or some other brokers you're friends with, then that's usually a good starting point.
Okay, awesome. So we got a question here for you, Feras. We got it from Nelson. It says, Feras, at what point would you do you recommend starting to consider your own management company for your complex?
If you could avoid it, never. I mean, management sucks at a lot of reasons, right? Economically, it doesn't really make sense until you're over 3,000 units. And the only reason we did it is just because we couldn't find a competent manager that we liked and know and trust in Texas. We have a good management company in Atlanta, but in Texas we really struggled. So
yeah. Okay, so there you go, 3,000 units, and and if you don't have a management company already that you think is great. All right. We got one from Vessi. Hey, Vessi, how you doing? Let's see. So one of you can answer this. Do you see investor returns expectations adjusting? On the one hand, inflation is high, so cash on cash is under 8%, may be unattractive. On the other hand, property prices continue to climb, putting downward pressure on returns. One of you guys want to take that?
I'm going to say that you have to educate your investors. You have to let them know what the market looks like. You have to let them know what deals you're looking for. You have to let them know what the economy is doing and what they can expect in the future. 2005 was a huge difference from 2009. 2009 was a huge difference from 2018, and 2018 is probably going to be greatly different from 2022 and 23, especially if we go to war with Russia and some of the things that could potentially happen. You just got to educate them, make them very informed of what you're working on and what your deals look like and what they can expect moving forward, and kind of take it that direction.
Yeah, and I'd say, the market changes, right? Like we used to present a 17 IRR and now we're presenting 13, right? And so if you're investing with an operator that's presenting a 17, really ask yourself, is that deal actually a 17, right? Some people have not tapered down what they're projecting, and they're just getting hyper aggressive. And so it is a different market. And for those of you that want to be operators, I mean, the reason we've been able to grow the way we have is because we set targets that we can deliver on. And I tell people it's better to underpromise and overdeliver than it is to overpromise and underdeliver, right? That investor will be yours for life if you can, set the right expectation and continue to meet that expectation.
And with that being said, whenever something in your deal does start to go a little off track, make sure communication is there. Communication is the most important part of this business, all aspects of this business.
Yep. So I would say this too, Vessi, like your investors truthfully are going to be trusting you. Like Feras mentioned in the beginning, where they know and like and trust you, right? So you have to establish that relationship where they know and like and trust you, because I know a lot of them, my investors, and the ones that are investing with me, oftentimes they invest personally. They want to invest with me personally, right? They want to know who you are personally, and whether you give a 15% IRR and somebody else gives a 16% IRR, they may not even care if that person is going to give a better return than your particular deal, because they know you, right? And they want to know you and they trust you.
They want comfort. They don't want to wake up in the middle of the night thinking about what their money's doing.
Yeah. All right. So this is kind of a question here from Ollie. This may be true or maybe not be true, but I hear that large maybe like 90% of multifamily apartments are owned and operated by professional investors or large institutions. Any
I'm going to disagree. Well, I'll agree with that as in professional, because if you're going to buy a building of that sort, you should be professional. You should act professional. You should conduct yourself like a professional business. But I disagree with that stereotype, because anybody on this call can buy a 130 unit apartment building. It is not that difficult. The difficult part is operating that thing efficiently and staying on track to do what you promised it was going to do to all of your investors.
And I think the more important part actually is the other half of the question, right? Where basically they're saying because it's professional investors, they've already squeezed all the juice out of it, right? And the answer is deals sell for a lot of reasons, right? We had a deal that we sold that honestly I kind of regret selling. I mean, it was a home run deal, did very, very, very well for our investors. But, we sold it for a variety of reasons. We already kind of hit all of our returns. Investors, prefer the cash then versus holding on, and we sold it. I know the next guy is going to make a killing off of it, right? And so remember, deals go through cycles too, right? And a lot of times that, someone with fresh capital can come in, that person will pay a premium, and they can invest that money into the deal and push it higher, right? Because even if it's a professional investor, I mean, look, we have a deal right now that essentially the previous owners upgraded half the units. We're going to upgrade the other half, right? They've already shown us the rents that we can get. And guess what? In 5 years, whenever we sell it, the first half is already going to be dated, and someone can come in and spend the money to upgrade that and make it nicer and get higher rents. And so deals go through cycles. It's really understanding about the story.
Awesome. I got a good question for both of you here, and I think I might answer this too. But this is from Christina C, cash flow portal representative here. How did each of you find your business partners? I think this is a great one to talk about with specifically since we're MFM. But how did you guys find your business partners?
I found them at a meetup. This stuff works, people.
Meetup. I met Powell and Feras from conferences. We hung out at several conferences. We became friends. Next thing you know, we started what's called Multifamily Masters Live.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, for me, in my storage business and also my real estate business, I met my business partner from my meetup, right? Like I was holding a meetup, and it was one of my very early meetups. He was a guy, he just came up to me, started showing me what he was doing. And actually, it's funny, the thing is we were competitors. We were actually trying to buy similar type of properties in the same market. We both were living at the time in Los Angeles, but we were buying in Indianapolis. And so pretty quickly we started just kind of sharing our underwriting with each other. He actually shared it with me. And I was like, wow, this guy's pretty generous sharing with me his underwriting. And then I started sharing mine. We started sharing deals. Hey, I saw this deal over here. Did you bid on it? Did you put in an offer? Here's another deal. I don't know if you took a look at it. And pretty soon we just decided, hey, let's just partner up instead of competing with each other. Like, let's just partner up on some of the deals. So, and it was all started from, I met him because I was running a meetup here in Los Angeles, and he just showed up, and we talked afterwards, and that's how we started. Okay, so let's see what are some of the other ones here. Sorry, I lost my place here. Maybe, hey, David, are you there? David Hudgens, maybe you could talk about how you met your business partner as well.
I got started in this whole endeavor going to Chris Collins' meetup, his MFM meetup, and met a lot of people, started going to lots of other meetups in LA. That's the nice thing about LA, we have a lot of meetups. So met a bunch of people, started going to conferences, went to Garrison's Secret X event, met Garrison there, met Renato, who's on this call, met Feras. So just going out and going to meetups and going to conferences is just a great way to meet people. And you meet a lot of people here, but then you go and meet them in person and hang out, and it's a totally different thing. So that's been great for me about being in the mastermind, is we try to get together with little mastermind events around the conferences when everybody's there, and then you get to hang out and see people. Like Garrison had a little thing in Daytona Beach, and it's like 15 of us just hanging out, and it's great to get that nice intimate setting. So I would try to do as many of those events a year as you can.
Awesome. Yeah, that was great, David. So we got another question from Julian. This is a little bit more involved here. It says, what service do you guys use for RUBS? So
We
how
use
about you, Feras?
Conservice.
What? So,
Conservice.
Conservice. Okay. All right. Follow-up question. We got a follow-up question from Joey on the proof of funds question. What if you are brand new and you don't know the broker? How to get, how to avoid or get around this proof of funds?
You got to get to know them. Number one, you got to add value. Number two, surround yourself with some people who have some experience so you sound pretty polished, and come in as a team. It's a we sport, not a me sport.
Okay. Awesome. We got time for a few more here. So let's see. Adrian asked, are you guys having trouble finding positive cash flow deals right off the bat? Are investors interested in investing in deals with negative cash flow from the start? Say there is value to be added.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tight market out there, right? We're literally underwriting 30, 40 deals a week right now. And so it's about finding deals that have a good story. Most of the time, going in caps are pretty tight, and you're really trying to look for deals with some clear upside.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this from, you have to think of your investors in mind when you're getting your deal, right? So there are deals out there, like let's just say, we're not really talking about development, but if you're doing a development deals are different, where you're probably not going to see any cash flow for the first maybe 3 years, and then after that you're going to see a big sale, and they could have a big return. But the people that are investing in cash flow consistently and are used to like investing in multifamily properties where they're constantly getting cash flow are maybe not the same investors that are going to be investing in a development deal where they're getting no cash flow and they're hoping for a big sale at the end. So you got to know in terms of what type of deal you're going for and what type of investors do you have that are ready to back you into this deal. So if you don't know what your investors profile is, whether they want cash flow or they're willing to say not have any cash flow and maybe look for a big sale at the end, you need to know that. You need to know who's going to be bringing your money and what are the chances that they're going to like that particular deal. All right, so let's see.
Powell, can you go over RUBS? I think a few people don't know what RUBS stands for. And
oh, sure. First, why don't you talk about RUBS? What is RUBS?
So RUBS essentially is what you are allowed to bill back to tenants for utilities, right? And it varies by state. There's a lot of laws you have to follow, and that's where using a company like Conservice is valuable because they know how to control it. But essentially, it's a way to say, look, our water bill is $30,000, and legally we can bill back 70% of that to tenants, and so they're going to prorate it back to the tenants based on the number of people that sorry everybody, bill it back to the tenants based on the number of tenants that live in each unit. And so a property that has 4 people on the lease is different than a unit that has 1 person on the lease, right? And so there's a lot of rules that they follow, and basically it's the method of billing back some of the utilities to recapture that.
Yep. Awesome. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Charles. Ratio Utility Billing System. Okay, it's what it stands for, RUBS. All right, a way to bill back the tenants for those utility costs, because they can be, water, electricity, gas, trash, sewer. Those things can be enormous when you get into those big properties, right? Okay, we're about at that time to go into our breakout rooms. So